Hi everyone. For those of you who have traveled with me before, I don't have to introduce myself. For those of you who haven't traveled with me, this is Julian. I'm hoping you'll travel with me in the future once Corona is behind us. So I was supposed to be doing something very different these days. I was supposed to be getting on a plane, flying from Israel to Athens, meeting my friends from Congregation Beth Am from Northern California, and doing a week with them in Athens, telling the Jewish story, visiting amazing places in Athens, in Yanina, in Volos, and up to Saloniki, and spending a week and then coming to Israel to spend another week with them over here. But this is not to be. The folks from Birmingham, Alabama, not joining me in April, and those of you who are joining me from Long Island in May are also not going to be here. But I was not going to sit around and do nothing while we go through these difficult times, so I've decided to invite you along with me on a virtual journey in Israel. Now, my journeys are just a little bit different from most of the journeys that people do. When I go to a place, what happens is that I go to see certain things with you, go to what we call tourist sites, but it's often not the traditional tourist sites that catch my eye, and not usually the traditional sites that I suggest to you that you focus on. I want to read a poem to you. This is a poem by Yehuda Amichai. Excuse me. It's called Tourists. Listen carefully. I think you'll understand what I try and do on my journeys. Visits of condolence is all we get from them. They squat at the Holocaust Memorial. They put on grey faces at the Wailing Wall, and they laugh behind heavy curtains in their hotels. They have their pictures taken together with our famous dead at Rachel's tomb and Herzl's tomb and on Ammunition Hill. They weep over our sweet boys and lust after our tough girls, and hang up their underwear to dry quickly in cool blue bathrooms. Once I sat on the steps by a gate at David's Tower. I placed my two heavy baskets at my side. A group of tourists was standing around their guide, and I became their target marker. You see that man with the baskets, the two heavy baskets? Just right of his head, there's an arch from the Roman period, just right of his head. But he's moving, I said to myself. Redemption will come only if their guide tells them, you see that arch from the Roman period? It's not important. But next to it, left and down a bit, there sits a man who's brought fruit and vegetables for his family. So just like Yehuda Amichai, I have to admit that I go to a site, and for instance, the first site we're traveling to on this virtual journey is a site called Megiddo. We're not going to the ancient Tel Megiddo, the archaeological ruins, and if you want to read about them, by the way, you can read The Source by James Michener. It's the site around which he builds his incredible book. But we go into an area right near Megiddo, where my intention initially was to show you some of the wildflowers at this time of the year in Israel. But I was actually distracted. And I was distracted because, it's Israel. So you arrive in a place, and it's filled with the most fascinating people. And I saw a man sitting over there that I'm going to introduce you to in a moment. His name, Moshe Berkovitz. And Moshe Berkovitz, he caught my attention because he was wearing the silliest hat. Now it is Purim, so maybe that's why he was wearing the silliest hat. He looked as though he was trying to be the sheriff in this local place. So I walked over to Moshe Berkovitz. I told him about the virtual journey that I'm trying to do with you folks, trying to make sure that you keep the connection to Israel and you make sure that once this is over, you actually come back here to Israel and travel with me. And I asked him if he would tell a little bit about himself. Listen to what Moshe has to say about who he is.
I am an art photographer.
And where do you live?
And I live in Kibbutz Nir David. Kibbutz Nir David is the beautiful place in Israel. There is a river which crosses in the middle of the kibbutz.
Where were you born?
I born in Romania.
In Romania? How old were you when you got to Israel?
Okay.
There's a story there, right?
I came with my mother and my two sisters, but one of my sisters came in Israel before me in 1948, and she lived with her husband in Kibbutz Nir David.
And what year were you born?
I born in Romania in city Iași
What year?
in 1941. Next time I will celebrate 80. And I take photos from aeroplanes, small aircraft, and under the water.
So let me ask you a question. You were born in 1941 in Romania,
Yes.
which means who was ruling Romania when you were born in Romania?
I born in Romania. My father was killed by the Romanian and the Nazis when I was 3 months old.
Wow.
Only. It was terrible because I don't know him. Only stories from my mother and from my sisters.
So you came to join your older sister on Kibbutz Nir David?
No, one of my sister came in Kibbutz Nir David. And in the vacation, when we came to Israel in 1953, I saw this kibbutz and it was beautiful. So I decided to live in this kibbutz. Now I am married with my beautiful wife Yael and 3 children. One of my child lives with 4 grandchild in the kibbutz.
Nothing better. I have 3 children and I have 5 grandchildren on the kibbutz.
Okay.
There's nothing better in the whole world.
I have 9 grandchild.
Wow, fantastic.
Yes.
To everyone now because it's now. Wow, look at this. I have to show you. This is Moshe's kibbutz.
Yes.
Guys, we are visiting him. He doesn't know this yet, but we're having coffee and tea with him, and Yael is going to make us a cake. See you later, folks.
So that was quite something, Moshe's story. You know, you walk around Israel and you come across just ordinary looking people. All you have to do is pay attention to them. Pay attention to them and ask them who they are. And the stories are extraordinary. Last week I was with what I called the last 2 tourists in the world. A lovely couple from Philadelphia. Jeff and Joanne, I hope you are out there listening to me. It was so wonderful being with you. And Jeff and Joanne and myself, we went down to the area right on the Gaza, the border of the Gaza Strip. So I wanted to explain something about Gaza to them, something of the history, something about the dilemmas, something of the military strategies that we've used over the years to try and deal with what is a real serious issue. How do we, on the one hand, maintain our humanity, be aware of the humanity of people on the other side, and at the same time look after ourselves, because we have to look after ourselves. I'm talking and all of a sudden I see a man in a golf cart. This man in the golf cart has a whole bunch of flags from Israeli units behind him in the golf cart. So I saw this was an opportunity. I stopped him and I said, "Hey, stop for a moment. I have 2 people over here who want to find out who you are." And he told us the most extraordinary story about who he was. Son of 2 Palmach fighters. When you're in Israel, we'll go to the Palmach Museum. If you've been to Israel, we probably went to the Palmach Museum. And he talked about what he does as an old age pensioner now, trying to connect people to the land of Israel. So that's Moshe's story. Moshe, who we met on this journey, by chance we find out that he was born in Romania. Obviously, if I hear that a Jew is born in Romania and he looks as though he's over a certain age, I need to know what year. When he says he's born in 1941, I realize that there's a story. Too powerful a story to just continue and leave that particular point alone. And then, of course, Moshe tells this very painful fact about his life, the fact that he loses his father as a little baby, father being murdered by Romanian fascists and the Nazis. And then, of course, the story unfolds, and Moshe, in his really lovely way, tells us about what his life has turned out to be. Thank God, a happy life with a wife, children, and grandchildren. Of course, he had to outdo me. When he told me he had 4 grandchildren on the kibbutz, I mentioned that I had 5. By the way, those of you who've met my grandchildren on the kibbutz before have different points. Might have met either 1, Tamar, 2, when Naomi came along. Maybe some of you been here lately have met Yotam and Asaph, 3 and 4, the twins. And none of you yet have actually met the newest arrival on the Resley grandchildren scene, Ronnie. But when you come and visit, I'll make sure you see them all. So he mentioned he has 4. I, of course, say I have 5. And then he ends up by having 9 grandchildren. I intend passing him in the next few years. So he mentioned, after we switched off my camera, he mentioned that he wrote a poem about his father and asked me whether I would like to hear it. So listen to the poem that Moshe is going to read to you. He's going to read it to you in Hebrew because he feels a little uncomfortable reading it in any other language. And by the way, he uses this very wonderful line. He apologizes before he reads the poem that he might actually get a little emotional. He lost his father, how many years ago? 79 years ago. 79 years ago, he loses a father, a man he has never met, and yet reading the poem of a man who he lost in 1941, reading the poem in 2020, he wants to apologize for maybe being a little emotional. After he reads the poem, I'll come back on and read it to you in English.
So Moshe is now going to read us a poem that he wrote about his father. He apologizes that he might get a little emotional while reading it. He'll read it in Hebrew, and afterwards I'll translate it for you guys into English. Moshe.
לו היית חי, צועד לידי, מחבק או מרביץ לישבני, על תעלולי שעשיתי בוודאי, האם שונים היו חיי? אין בנשמתי אתה, את דמך נושא אני, דמותך בזיכרוני, יום יום, שעה שעה, תינוק בן יומו הייתי, כשנלקחת ולא חזרת, רק תמונה השארת. אם היה לי חפץ, מקל או חגורה, כובע, עט או מטריה, שעון או כל דבר אחר ממך, הייתי שם בארון ושומר אותו לעד. פעם בשנה מוציאו לנשום שזה אתה.
Wow, Moshe. That's pretty strong.
So this is the poem that Moshe read to you. I translated it today, and I hope I did a reasonable job. The poem is called If You Only Were Alive, in memory of my father Mendel of blessed memory. If only you were alive, walking by my side, hugging me or slapping my bottom because of the pranks I'd probably done, how different my life would have been. You're in my soul. I carry your blood in me, your image in my memory, day after day, hour after hour. I was a newborn when you were taken, never to return. Only a photograph remained. If I had an object, a stick or a belt, a hat, a pen, an umbrella, a watch or anything of yours, I would place it in a cupboard and guard it forever. Once a year, I would take it out so it could breathe, so I could dream that it is you. Moshe's father died 79 years ago, and you can hear through his poetry he still mourns him. So Moshe was not the only person over there. Of course, this is Israel. Now, in your image of Israel, you imagine a place possibly filled with conflict, people of with different ethnic groups, of different religions, slightly suspicious of each other, maybe not interacting, or if they do interact, mainly in anger. It's just not like that. Of course there are difficulties in Israel. Of course we have issues that we need to solve. But this is a place filled with extraordinary energy. Besides Moshe, there are actually 3 other people also selling things, because this is a place that people visit. Let me tell you the other people. So first there was a Druze man who of course was selling pita, labane, and zater. Now, some of you have eaten pita, labana, and zater. Those who haven't, remind me when we're in Israel together, and I will make sure that you eat pita, labana, and zater. I'm not going to explain what it is now. Just be ready for something absolutely delicious. And then, of course, there was an elderly woman in her late 80s who was born in Transylvania, the place where Dracula comes from. She, of course, also is a woman that lives through the Shoah, through the Holocaust, comes to Israel. And what was she sharing? As someone with a Hungarian-Romanian background, she was selling paprika. There she was selling paprika. The fourth person I'm going to introduce to you now in this very short video, he only speaks Hebrew, so please for a moment just meet Khaled.
I was taking a little video of Moshe over there. My wife came over and told me there's somebody even more interesting in the ice cream truck. And his name is Khaled, and he's from Fachem. And he just shared with us that his grandfather lived to be 107. And the amazing thing is that Khaled's grandfather got married for the second time at age 100. And very nicely, Khaled just said, when you guys come to Israel, you're all invited to his home for a chafla. Yalla. Thank you so much, Khaled. Bye. Bye.
So Khaled is a Muslim from Fachem. Fachem, the largest Arab town in Israel. Fachem known on a political level for being the home of what we call the Northern Islamist movement. Not a particularly pro-Zionist movement, to put it mildly, but Khaled, like many of the people in Fachem, what they want to do is make a living. And Khaled sells ice cream. Khaled told me that if he is the first one to arrive at the spot near Megiddo, and he sees that there are people out and about hiking or touring, he calls up Moshe. Moshe told me that he phones the Hungarian woman and the Druze man to join them as well, and they sit down together having a cup of coffee until the tourists arrive and they can try and sell their wares. Folks, we are going to have the most amazing times as we travel around Israel. We are going to see things that are so wonderful, things that bring up the types of questions that all of us need to continue asking so that our lives can be filled with meaning. And we're going to talk to people. We're going to meet ordinary, wonderful people with extraordinary stories. I really hope that you stay on the bus with me as we visit Israel while Corona keeps you far away from us. Shalom, see you soon. And by the way, if there's anything you want me to talk about, or if there are any sites you want me to go to, or if there's certain types of people you'd like to hear from, just respond to this email. What you have to do, by the way, in the email is just click on the link and you will go in to hear this first part of our journey. Bye for now.